We would watch Bonanza together, and she would tell me how she believed she was related to you. She was very proud of her heritage and very proud of you.
Before his death, Pernell Roberts, the man who played Adam Cartwright, the eldest son on Bonanza, finally revealed the truth about why he turned his back on fame.
I'm willing to try. I'm really rather ill-prepared, but I enjoy just, you'll take potluck with me. We were talking about it earlier, as you like it.
The 7 ages of man.
Yeah.
His story wasn't about arrogance or money. It was about a man of conviction, one who refused to sacrifice art, truth, and integrity for television comfort. But money wasn't why he really left. His true reason remained hidden until recently. The shocking truth: it involved civil rights, blacklisting, and a secret Hollywood wanted buried forever. The making of a rebel. Pernell Elvin Roberts Jr. was born on May 18, 1928, in Waycross, Georgia. He arrived as the only child to parents who represented two different worlds. His father, a traveling Dr. Pepper salesman who understood hard work and persistence, and his mother, a woman who encouraged her son to ask questions, to read deeply, and to never accept the world as it appeared on the surface. Young Pernell was different from other boys in his small southern town. While his peers chased baseballs and dreamed of local heroes, he found himself drawn to church choirs, where his voice could soar above the congregation. He learned to play the horn, an instrument that demanded discipline and breath control. When Roberts enrolled at Georgia Tech, his family assumed he would follow a practical path. Engineering seemed like a respectable career, one that promised stability and respectability in post-war America. But sitting in those classrooms, surrounded by formulas and calculations, Roberts felt a gnawing emptiness. The numbers on the blackboard couldn't capture what burned inside him: a hunger for meaning, for expression, for something that mattered beyond blueprints and bottom lines. He left Georgia Tech before graduating, a decision that confused his family but made perfect sense to him. He wasn't abandoning education, he was searching for the right kind of learning. His brief service in the United States Marine Corps taught him discipline of a different sort. The structure, the demands, the uncompromising expectations, these elements would stay with him forever. But even in uniform, Roberts knew his soul belonged elsewhere. When his service ended, he didn't return to Georgia. Instead, he enrolled at the University of Maryland to study drama, finally giving himself permission to pursue what he had always known was his true calling. At Maryland, Roberts discovered the transformative power of classical theater. He performed in Shakespeare's great works, Othello, with its themes of jealousy and racial prejudice, Antigone, with its exploration of individual conscience against state authority. These weren't just plays to Roberts, they were examinations of the human condition, philosophical inquiries disguised as entertainment. He found himself electrified by the language, by the moral complexity, by the way great drama could hold up a mirror to society and force audiences to confront uncomfortable truths. This was what acting should be. Not escapism, but illumination. In 1952, with barely enough money in his pocket for a week's rent, Roberts left the South behind and boarded a bus to New York City. He had no connections, no guarantees, no safety net. What he carried instead was an unshakable belief that art mattered, that theater could change minds and touch hearts. But first, he would have to prove himself on the stages that separated dreamers from artists. That was how a Georgia rebel conquered Broadway and caught Hollywood's attention, though success would come with strings attached. From Shakespeare to stardom. New York City in the early 1950s was a battlefield for actors. Thousands arrived every year with dreams tucked under their arms and determination burning in their eyes. Most would leave defeated, returning home to safer professions and smaller ambitions. But Pernell Roberts wasn't most actors. While others chased fame, Roberts chased truth. While others wanted to be seen, Roberts wanted to be heard. And in the unforgiving ecosystem of New York theater, that difference would prove crucial. Roberts found his first real home at Arena Stage, one of the pioneering regional theaters that treated drama as an art form rather than mere entertainment. Here, surrounded by serious actors and directors who valued craft over commerce, Roberts began to build his reputation. His physical presence commanded attention. He stood tall, with sharp features and intense eyes that could convey intelligence and emotion without uttering a single word. His breakthrough came with a production of Macbeth that showcased everything Roberts believed acting should be. He didn't play the Scottish king as a simple villain or a helpless pawn of fate. Instead, he revealed Macbeth as a man destroyed by ambition and guilt, someone the audience could understand while condemning his actions. The performance earned Roberts the Drama Desk Award, one of theater's most prestigious honors. For a young actor from Georgia, performing Shakespeare in New York, and winning recognition from critics who had seen the greatest actors of their generation, it was validation that his instincts had been correct. Classical theater, with its complex characters and moral weight, was exactly where he belonged. Broadway noticed. By the late 1950s, Roberts was appearing in productions that represented the pinnacle of American theater. He performed in The Lovers, bringing intensity to a story of romantic obsession. He tackled The Taming of the Shrew, one of Shakespeare's most challenging comedies, proving he could handle both drama and wit. His performance in The Duchess of Malfi, a dark Renaissance tragedy about corruption and revenge, demonstrated his range and his willingness to explore humanity's darker corners. Critics praised his work consistently, noting not just his technical skill, but his intellectual approach to every role. Roberts didn't simply memorize lines and hit marks. He understood what each play was trying to say about human nature, society, and morality. But Roberts had a vision for his career that extended beyond critical acclaim. He believed deeply that theater should matter, that it should challenge audiences, provoke thought, and inspire change. He wanted to perform works that respected the intelligence of everyday people, not just educated elites. He saw acting as a form of service, a way to illuminate truth and expose injustice. Every role he chose, every performance he gave, was filtered through this lens of purpose and meaning. To Roberts, being an actor wasn't a job or even a calling, it was a responsibility. Then Hollywood came calling with an offer that seemed, on the surface, like an opportunity too good to refuse. In 1959, NBC was developing a new Western drama called Bonanza, an ambitious show that would be broadcast in color and tell stories about a family of ranchers navigating life in the Nevada Territory. They wanted Roberts for the role of Adam Cartwright, the eldest son, an educated, thoughtful man who served as the intellectual conscience of the Cartwright family. The money was substantial, far more than he could ever earn in regional theater. More importantly, television could reach millions of Americans, not just the few thousand who could afford Broadway tickets. If he wanted to use his art to impact society, wasn't this the perfect platform? Roberts accepted the role, though not without reservations. He had heard stories about television's creative limitations, about how sponsors and networks controlled content with an iron fist, how writers churned out scripts on impossible deadlines with little room for depth or nuance. But he told himself this might be different. Perhaps television didn't have to be the artistic wasteland everyone claimed it was. He moved to California with his wife and young son, ready to begin this new chapter. The first scripts arrived, and Roberts read them with growing unease. The stories were simple, almost formulaic. Conflicts that could be resolved in an hour, villains who were purely evil, and heroes who were purely good. The dialogue lacked the complexity and poetry he had grown accustomed to on stage. The characters, including his own Adam, seemed more like archetypes than fully realized human beings. But Roberts reminded himself that this was just the beginning. Shows evolved. Writers improved. He would have time to shape Adam into something more substantial. What he didn't realize yet was that Bonanza's producers had very different ideas about what the show should be, and those ideas would put him on a collision course with an industry that valued obedience above all else. Fame would become a prison, and the man who had everything was more miserable than he'd ever been. A star who refused to play the game. Success arrived faster than anyone expected. When Bonanza premiered on September 12, 1959, it captured something the American public desperately wanted: a vision of the Old West, where problems could be solved, families stayed together, and moral clarity existed in a world that was becoming increasingly complicated. By its second season, the show had climbed into the top ratings, and by the third, it had become a full-blown cultural phenomenon. The four actors playing the Cartwright men became household names, their faces recognizable in every corner of America. Pernell Roberts should have been thrilled. His portrayal of Adam Cartwright, the thoughtful eldest son with the deep voice and penetrating gaze, had made him a star. Women found him sophisticated and handsome. Men respected his character's intelligence and calm authority. Among the four Cartwrights, Adam stood apart. Not the warm father figure like Ben, not the hot-headed middle son like Hoss, not the charming youngest like Little Joe. Adam was the intellectual, the one who thought before acting, who questioned assumptions, who brought reason to emotional situations. Audiences loved him for it, and Roberts's performance was a major reason why the show worked so well. But while millions of Americans fell in love with Bonanza every week, Roberts was falling out of love with everything the show represented. The higher the ratings climbed, the deeper his frustration grew. What bothered him most wasn't the fame or the grueling production schedule. It was the creative stagnation he saw in every script that landed on his dressing room table. Week after week, month after month, the stories followed the same patterns. A stranger would arrive at the Ponderosa with a problem. The Cartwrights would get involved. There would be a moral lesson, usually delivered by Ben, the wise patriarch. The conflict would resolve neatly, often with a fistfight or shootout. Then everything would reset for the next episode, with no character growth, no lasting consequences, no complexity. Roberts had come from a world where characters evolved, where plays explored the depths of human nature, where audiences were challenged to think and feel uncomfortable truths. Now he found himself trapped in what he increasingly saw as a creative straitjacket. He watched his character deliver the same types of lines week after week, solve the same types of problems, and remain fundamentally unchanged. Adam Cartwright, at the beginning of Season 1, was virtually identical to Adam Cartwright at the end of Season 3. To Roberts, this wasn't acting, it was repetition. It wasn't art, it was manufacturing. His frustration manifested in increasingly pointed comments to anyone who would listen. He began describing the show's premise with bitter accuracy. 3 grown men, fully adult and capable, still living at home and seeking their father's approval for every decision. What kind of message was that sending? Where was the independence, the personal growth, the natural progression of men becoming their own people? He called the scripts childish, arguing that they insulted the intelligence of viewers who deserved better than predictable plots and one-dimensional conflicts. Television, he believed, had the potential to be a powerful medium for serious storytelling, but shows like Bonanza were squandering that potential in favor of safe, comfortable entertainment. While his three co-stars, Lorne Greene, Dan Blocker, and Michael Landon, seemed content with their roles and grateful for the success, Roberts grew increasingly isolated. Greene, playing patriarch Ben Cartwright, embraced his position as America's television father. Blocker brought warmth and humor to the gentle giant Hoss. Landon, as the youngest son, Little Joe, enjoyed the heartthrob status and the creative opportunities the show eventually gave him. They all seemed to understand something Roberts refused to accept: that television was a business, that Bonanza was giving millions of people exactly what they wanted, and that fighting the formula was pointless. But Roberts couldn't simply go along to get along. His entire life had been built on principles, on the belief that art should matter, and that actors had a responsibility to their craft. He began his quiet rebellion, small acts of resistance that reflected his growing desperation to inject honesty into the show. He crossed out lines he found particularly ridiculous. He refused to deliver speeches with fake emotion, instead playing scenes with a restraint that sometimes baffled directors. In one memorable instance, he insisted that Adam read from notes during a scene rather than deliver a long, implausible speech from memory, because that's what a real person would do. The tension on set became palpable. Roberts wasn't simply a dissatisfied actor, he was becoming a problem that producers didn't know how to solve. When NBC tried to silence him with money, Roberts made a choice that shocked an entire industry. The man who wouldn't be bought. By 1964, the situation had deteriorated beyond repair. What had begun as artistic frustration had escalated into open warfare between Roberts and the show's creative leadership. The breaking point came in his conflicts with David Dortort, Bonanza's producer, and the man who controlled every aspect of the show's direction. Dortort was a television veteran who understood the business perfectly. He knew what audiences wanted, what sponsors would accept, and what networks demanded. He had created a formula that worked brilliantly, generating massive ratings and unprecedented profits. The last thing he needed was a rebellious actor questioning his decisions and undermining the very foundation of the show's success. Roberts didn't care about Dortort's track record or his business acumen. He cared about integrity, and he saw none in the scripts that continued to pile up on his dressing room desk. Their confrontations became legendary on the NBC lot. Roberts would challenge storylines, question character motivations, and argue that the show was insulting the intelligence of its audience. Dortort, accustomed to actors who followed direction and appreciated their paychecks, found Roberts's attitude incomprehensible and infuriating. He labeled the actor rebellious, ungrateful, and impossible to work with. To Dortort, Roberts was throwing away a golden opportunity, complaining about problems that didn't exist while millions of Americans loved every episode. NBC executives watched this conflict with growing alarm. They had a massive hit on their hands, but one of their 4 stars was openly hostile to the material and increasingly vocal in interviews about his dissatisfaction. In the corporate logic of television, there was an obvious solution: make Roberts happy by giving him what everyone in Hollywood wanted: more money. In their minds, every actor's complaints could be solved with a bigger paycheck. Whatever artistic concerns Roberts claimed to have, surely they could be soothed with financial security that most actors could only dream about. The offer they presented was staggering, even by Hollywood standards. NBC proposed paying Roberts $10,500 per episode, an astronomical sum in 1964, that would translate to roughly $693,000 per season. But the offer went beyond just salary. It included lucrative rerun royalties that would generate income for years, potentially decades. They were essentially offering him generational wealth, the kind of financial security that could support his family, fund any artistic project he wanted to pursue later, and guarantee a comfortable life for the rest of his days. All he had to do was stay, stop complaining, and play Adam Cartwright for a few more years. Roberts didn't hesitate. He turned them down flat. The decision shocked everyone who heard about it: agents, fellow actors, industry executives, even his own family. In Hollywood, where money was the measure of success and security was the ultimate goal, walking away from that kind of offer seemed insane. But to Roberts, the decision was perfectly clear. No amount of money could compensate for the slow death of his artistic soul. No paycheck, however large, could make him respect himself while participating in something he considered creatively bankrupt. He had spent his entire life building a career based on principles, on the belief that art mattered and integrity wasn't negotiable. Accepting NBC's offer would mean admitting that everything he believed could be purchased, that his values had a price tag, and that comfort was more important than conviction. He articulated his frustration in terms that cut to the heart of his dilemma. He told interviewers that he hadn't grown at all since the series began, that he was trapped in an impotent role that offered no opportunity for development or depth. While his character should have been evolving, learning, changing over 5 years of stories, Adam Cartwright remained frozen in place. The same man with the same concerns, having the same types of conversations. For an actor who believed in the transformative power of great drama, this stasis was suffocating. He was being paid to stand still, to repeat himself, to waste the precious years of his career on work that would leave no meaningful legacy. In 1965, at the absolute height of Bonanza's dominance as the #1 show on television, Pernell Roberts walked away. He left millions of dollars on the table, turned his back on fame and security, and chose uncertainty over compromise. It was one of the boldest, most controversial decisions in television history, a moment when an actor valued his principles more than his paycheck. Hollywood would make sure he paid dearly for that choice. While Roberts fought for his artistic soul, he was simultaneously waging a much more important battle, one that would define his true legacy. The activist behind the actor. While Hollywood debated whether Roberts was courageous or foolish, he was already engaged in battles that made his departure from Bonanza seem trivial by comparison. His rebellion wasn't limited to scripts and storylines. It extended to the fundamental injustices he saw woven into the fabric of American entertainment and society itself. While other celebrities carefully managed their public images and avoided controversy, Roberts used his platform to challenge the systems of discrimination that television helped perpetuate. He understood something that most in Hollywood refused to acknowledge: that entertainment wasn't neutral, that every casting choice and storyline sent messages about who mattered and who didn't. In 1965, the same year he left Bonanza, Roberts traveled to Alabama to join the Selma to Montgomery March alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He walked shoulder to shoulder with Harry Belafonte, Joan Baez, and thousands of others demanding voting rights and racial equality. For Roberts, this wasn't a publicity stunt or a celebrity appearance. It was a moral obligation. He believed that anyone with a public platform had a responsibility to use it for justice, and he was willing to face the hatred, threats, and potential violence that came with taking such a stand. While many white actors stayed silent on civil rights, Roberts put his body on the line. His activism extended directly into his criticism of Bonanza and NBC. He openly condemned the network for presenting a sanitized, whitewashed version of American history that erased the experiences and contributions of people of color. The Old West portrayed on Bonanza was overwhelmingly white, despite the historical reality that Chinese immigrants, Mexican vaqueros, black cowboys, and Native Americans were integral to the region's development. Roberts argued that by making these communities invisible or portraying them through racist stereotypes, television was perpetuating dangerous lies about American identity. He went further, demanding that Native American and Asian roles be played by actual Native American and Asian actors rather than white performers in makeup and prosthetics. This position, obvious and uncontroversial today, was considered radical in the 1960s when studios routinely cast white actors in any role they wanted. Roberts even proposed a groundbreaking storyline where Adam Cartwright would marry a Native American woman played by a black actress. A plot that would have challenged multiple taboos simultaneously. NBC rejected the idea immediately, unwilling to risk the controversy or potential loss of Southern viewers. Roberts refused to back down. He became known throughout the industry not just as the man who walked away from Bonanza, but as the actor who couldn't be controlled, who spoke uncomfortable truths, who put principles above profit. Hollywood responded predictably. Producers quietly blacklisted him, warning each other not to hire the difficult actor who might bring his politics onto their sets. The message was clear. Dissent had consequences, and Roberts would serve as an example of what happened to those who refused to play by the industry's rules. He had sacrificed his career for his convictions. The question now was whether he would ever find redemption in an industry that had turned its back on him. After years in the wilderness, Roberts returned to television, but this time on his own uncompromising terms. Redemption, Trapper John, M.D., and the return to purpose. The wilderness years were long and humbling. After leaving Bonanza, Roberts found himself largely shut out of Hollywood, relegated to regional theater productions and occasional guest appearances on television shows. He performed in Shakespeare festivals, touring productions, and small venues that paid a fraction of what he had once earned. But he never complained, never expressed regret. He had made his choice with open eyes, and he would live with the consequences. Those years taught him patience and reinforced what he had always known, that meaningful work mattered more than fame or fortune. Then, in 1979, came an unexpected opportunity. CBS offered him the lead role in Trapper John, M.D., a medical drama inspired by the character from M.A.S.H. The premise intrigued Roberts, an older, wiser doctor mentoring younger physicians while navigating the complexities of modern medicine and hospital politics. But more importantly, Roberts sensed that television itself had evolved during his absence. Audiences were ready for more sophisticated storytelling, and networks were willing to take creative risks that would have been impossible in the 1960s. Roberts accepted the role, but with conditions that would have been unthinkable during his Bonanza years. He demanded full script approval, meaningful input on storylines, and respect for his values both on screen and behind the scenes. Remarkably, CBS agreed. They understood they weren't just hiring an actor, they were partnering with a man who would protect the show's integrity as fiercely as he had once fought against Bonanza's limitations. The show premiered to 28 million viewers, an ironic echo occurring exactly 20 years after his first Bonanza episode aired. But this time, everything was different. Roberts wasn't playing a character trapped in perpetual stasis. Trapper John evolved, faced moral dilemmas, and grappled with the ethical complexities of modern medicine. The scripts respected the audience's intelligence, exploring issues like medical ethics, addiction, and social inequality. Roberts had finally found what he had been searching for: commercial success that didn't require compromising his principles. Behind the scenes, Roberts used his power to transform how the show operated. He insisted on diversity in hiring, ensuring that nearly 40% of the directors were women or minorities at a time when such representation was virtually non-existent in television. He created profit-sharing arrangements for crew members, arguing that everyone who contributed to the show's success deserved to benefit financially. He demanded equal treatment for all staff regardless of their position or prestige. When nominated for an Emmy Award, Roberts characteristically refused to participate in the expensive campaign process that nominees typically undertook. Instead, he donated his $25,000 campaign budget to the Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization fighting hate groups and defending civil rights. Even in success, he remained committed to causes larger than himself. Trapper John, MD, ran for 7 full seasons. It outlasted his time on Bonanza, and proving that principled work could also beat popular work. The show aired 151 episodes and ended on his terms in 1986. Though Bonanza had more viewers in its time, Trapper John held strong, even against tough competition. It was one of the rare shows that had fans in all age groups and backgrounds. It made $127.8 million in advertising. Roberts earned around $4.5 million from his cut of the profits alone. In his final years, Roberts faced the greatest loss of his life and finally revealed why leaving Bonanza had saved his soul. The final years and his truth before death. After Trapper John ended in 1986. Roberts gradually withdrew from the spotlight. He had proven everything he needed to prove: that an actor could maintain integrity and still succeed, that standing for something mattered more than standing in front of cameras. He retreated to his Malibu home, a modest house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, where the sound of waves replaced the noise of Hollywood. He spent his days reading, walking the beach, and finding peace in the simplicity he had always craved, but never quite achieved during his tumultuous career. His personal life had been marked by searching and impermanence. Roberts married 4 times, each relationship reflecting different chapters of his restless journey. The first 3 marriages ended in divorce, casualties, perhaps, of a man whose commitment to principles sometimes overshadowed his ability to compromise in personal matters. But his 4th marriage to Eleanor Criswell brought him the stability and understanding he had long deserved. She accepted him completely, his intensity, his convictions, his refusal to bend. Yet his greatest heartbreak came in 1989 when his only son, Jonathan, died in a motorcycle accident at age 38. For a man who had faced down industry moguls, marched for civil rights, and walked away from millions without flinching, the loss of his child was a wound that never fully healed. Roberts rarely spoke publicly about Jonathan's death, but those close to him saw how profoundly it affected him. The pain added a weight to his later years, a sadness that no amount of professional vindication could erase. In 2009, Roberts was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. True to form, he refused to make his illness public or seek sympathy from the fans who still remembered him. He faced death, as he had faced everything else, on his own terms, with dignity and without drama. He spent his final months in quiet reflection, surrounded by Eleanor and a small circle of friends who understood that the man they were losing had lived exactly as he intended. Pernell Roberts died peacefully on January 24, 2010, at age 81. He was the last surviving member of the original Bonanza cast, outliving the co-stars with whom he had shared both success and conflict. In his final interviews before his death, Roberts reflected on the decision that had defined his public image for over 4 decades. He expressed no regret about leaving Bonanza, explaining that staying would have destroyed something essential inside him. Fame without freedom, he said, was just another kind of prison. He had chosen authenticity over comfort, principle over profit, and self-respect over security. While others measured success in ratings and bank accounts, Roberts measured it in whether he could look at himself in the mirror and recognize the man looking back. By that standard, despite the struggles and sacrifices, his life had been an unqualified success. Pernell Roberts lived as few people have the courage to live, entirely, honestly, and uncompromisingly on his own terms, and he died the same way. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.